So check it out, guys. We got another project that we're wrapping up here. It's a sunbelt rentals in Johnstown, Colorado. If you're familiar with northern Colorado, it's over by Shills and all that area there. They're developing a ton of stuff over here. We've got a few projects going on over here, but this one in particular was pretty interesting. It was a ground up sunbelt rentals. This used to be just a massive, lot, dirt lot. So I'll take you on a tour here in a minute, but this guy was a kind of a challenging job. Just the nature of everything and how it all unfolded, and working with a new general contractor and just getting familiar with each other. And I had some new guys on board and this and that. So the reality of this job, I think, man, this was like a $300,000 job for us or something like that. And I didn't make too much money on this job, right? So that's the reality of this. Sometimes that happens, and as the year unfolded last year with this job, we were just so busy and just so overwhelmed with work that I wasn't able to be here a lot, right? So I was relying on some of our new guys to help manage it, and that proved to be a challenge. I had some wrong people on this job, some apprentices that weren't exactly great. So that's the reality of this job. But anyway, another funny thing that happened with this job here was the entire project's basically finished right now, but we find out at the end of the project that we can't get permanent power from the utility company because they didn't have permission from the ditch company, which is nearby over here. I mean, as you guys could see, it's there's just like a lot of open available land around here. But from what I was told was they didn't have permission to do the underground utility to feed this place like they originally should have. So here we are finishing this job, probably 98% complete right now. And this building sat for like 3 months with no power. And finally, we get this thing all squared away. The utility company goes through whatever they had to do to get us power, and here we are. So 3 months later, as this place has been like a ghost town, we are now just turning things back on. And man, yeah, just hopefully we could wrap this up and everybody gets out of here, everybody gets paid, right? So that's kind of a problem too. It's when you expect to get paid on these commercial projects at a certain point, right? That usually never happens in commercial. So as a new contractor or a seasoned contractor, right? Like I guarantee you're familiar with how this 30, 60, 90 net goes on some of these projects. And if you're not careful, you get in cash crunches every once in a while throughout the year, and you have to have some type of reserve, or you have to be prepared for it. For us, it's both. And now we're starting to get heavy into the service game, which will provide that cash flow that you need to operate a business. Because we got guys, we have big payrolls. For us it's big. I don't know what's big for everybody else, but for me, with fluctuating between 7 and 15 guys, we could have payroll as low as 25,000 50,000 every couple of weeks. So you got to make sure you have money, right? And when these types of things happen, and now we're not getting paid the last 10% or retainage or whatever it is on the project, we got to make up for that somehow. Yeah, you basically become the bank on a lot of these commercial projects. It's not fun, we especially when you didn't do too well on the job. So long story short, I'm excited to get this thing wrapped up. But yeah, come inside, check it out. Either way, I'm proud of the team. We put it together. It looks clean. Everything looks nice. And today's the day we turn everything on, make sure stuff works. So here it is, Sunbelt Rentals, guys, Johnstown, Colorado. New construction, ground up. I think our quote was somewhere around 300,000 for this thing, just for the electrical. We did it all. We did the site lighting. You can see the guys, it looks like they just got some lights on, so that's cool. We're testing the lights right now, all the parking lot lights. But this was just a big empty lot. It looks like that over there across the street when we first started. So everything you see here is new. These gates, this wall, that building, the striping, the pavement, everything. We had a lot of underground here that was required not just for our site lighting, but we have some gas pumps out here. We had some electrical for charging stations for these guys. So not a whole lot to see out here, but if you're a commercial electrician, you get it. You know what takes place and what's all involved with even just setting this pole right here, right? So this pole light, these fancy pole lights, they're black, and the city has their own special requirements for how much output and how much lighting pollution these things are allowed, right? There's just so much in the world right now with these energy codes and trying to be more efficient with the electrical grid and things like that. So we got all kinds of different stuff that we got to deal with on a daily basis on these commercial projects. But, you know, for my Sparkies out there, you guys know what it takes to put one of these things in. And, you know, when you see these pole lights in a parking lot, most people don't realize, but, you know, you have underground conduits that come up in the middle of this thing. So before they pour this concrete, this thing probably goes down. There's a cage under there that's probably about 6 foot in the ground. And so we run our conduits from pole light to pole light. We come up into that cage and prior to them pouring the concrete, and then we also put some grounding in there. They'll put you know, there's different methods for grounding, but one of the most basic one is you throw a bear number 4 down there, roll it up like a lasso and tie it to the cage, bring it up. So when you come terminate this stuff, these hand holes right here is where we make our terminations for the lights. Those conduits come up. They're probably cut down to about right here. And then the wires just kind of free flow within this channel right here. But that ground wire that I'm talking about, it goes way down there. It goes way down there, 6 feet into the ground or so, comes up. We leave it, you know, usually long enough about this, you know, a couple feet above this base, just so we have enough wire in here to ground it to the steel casing right here, you know. So it's important to have that additional grounding out here because pole lights are conductive and they stand really tall and they are a great target for lightning. So it's kind of the purpose of the additional grounding with these pole lights. You can see this one's a little different, has a double head right there. So what you're looking at here is gas fuel dispensing area. And I don't know if you could see very well, but we have a couple conduits right there. You can see them in the background there. We have a couple conduits that come out here and they shoot over to that building over there. And so this is a little task that we got to work on today, but basically what we're doing is we ran these underground conduits, right? And there's different rules when it comes to fuel dispensing. And we've done plenty of gas stations and that, you know, through our years and stuff like that, which some of them I like and some of them I don't. But the one thing to keep in mind if you're doing fuel dispensing, you need to be sure that you are using rigid conduit for the first 10 feet. Rigid conduit for the first 10 feet on both sides. So in this case, we have rigid conduit going underground 10 feet, and then it transitions to PVC. And then from there, it comes out here, transitions back to rigid conduit. And the rigid conduit is just a much thicker, stronger type conduit. It gives you extra protection for, you know, there's going to be a lot of traffic here and stuff like that. And this is not finished yet, but when it's all said and done, these conduits right here are going to have what we call sill-offs on them. And those sill-offs will have what we refer to as Chico, right? It's a compound that you mix together. It's kind of this strange wool and this strange type of gooey stuff that you mix up in there. And what it does is it literally sills off that conduit, so that way gas vapors or any hazardous chemical kind of vapors can't seep into that conduit just in case down the road, whatever, these wires start to deteriorate, the insulation on them starts to deteriorate. You don't want no arcing and sparking going on around gas, right? Explosions. So there's different rules when it comes to this stuff. We use the Chico, we use the Sill-Offs, and all this stuff gets inspected. But yeah, obviously this is not finished yet, but it will be. And this is not finished because they did not know what they wanted for the longest time. We were being told that they were going to run these things off of a solar pad, and it looks like they changed their mind. So now we're back to the original plan of us actually bringing two 120 volt circuits over here, and they're strictly for the pumps, you know, and these pumps aren't on here yet either. But this will end up, these conduits right here, they're threaded up here. We'll add our Sill-Offs here. We'll transition to a flexible metal conduit, which will land into their pumps, which I believe the pumps are inside these things. So those two 120 volt circuits are simply to power these pumps that dispense the fuel out to the equipment. On that end of things over there, we are going to put emergency stop, and you've probably seen them before in your common gas station. If you look on the building on a gas station, you'll see a big red button, and that big red button, if you go push it, it'll kill all the dispensers out there. So if there's a fire or any kind of emergency, that emergency stop is a override to kill all electric functions and isolate the gas, you know, so you could in case of emergencies, basically. So that's something we need to work on today. So we got a little bit of work out here to finish this stuff up. But yeah, I guess we'll catch up on this, show you guys what all this looks like when it's all said and done. Yeah, so check it out. We had Excel. We passed our final inspections last week. One of our videos was showing us pulling in feeders from that utility cabinet right there, coming underground under the van here, and hitting this CT cabinet. So originally this job was supposed to have a backup generator and all sorts of fun stuff, but they canceled all that stuff out after they saw lead times on this. But it looks like our CT cabinet, if you guys aren't familiar, this is technically property of the utility company. Even though we purchase it, we install it, we bring the underground conduits and feeders into it, we do all the wiring and everything that's required for it. But this is the utility company's property. So they hand us over what's called CTs, which stands for current transformers. And since this is three-phase here, we put 1, 2, 3 current transformers in there. I'll post a picture of it in a bit. But those current transformers are just electronically, they monitor the amount of electricity that's flowing through, that's being used by this building, right? And so they do that with these low voltage wires and high voltage wires that plug into this very specific meter housing, these electric meter housings that they supply us with as well. But yeah, so very common setup in a commercial application here in our area. It's anything over 400 amps requires CTs, right? Current transformers with this type of meter. So this isn't something you would see in a residential application or anything under 400 amps. In some cases, we don't use current transformers to monitor the amount of energy coming through. They would simply do it with the meter right here. So yeah, like I said, very common setup. But in our area, when you see this green sticker, that means you've had your final inspections and everything's been improved. And the inspection agency, the city that you're working with, will electronically send the power company a notification saying, hey, they're good, we're ready for your stuff. And the power company will come and set all this stuff up. They will also go and hook everything up in that big green transformer over there, which has all taken place this morning. They've been here, they got it hooked up, and now they are gone. So big day for us when these types of things happen, because we spend most of the day just check in, making sure there's no issues, turning everything on, We're going to kind of stay away from the HVAC system today because those guys are not here and I don't want to bump their stuff or mess with their heaters or do anything like that until I know they are completely good. Or the plumber, for example, if you have an electric hot water heater, you do not want to turn that stuff on until you know that thing has water in it, right? If it doesn't have water in it and you put electricity to it, you're going to burn up the elements. Then we have problems. So yeah. What do we have here? Okay, so from outside, CT cabinet. After that, all that jazz that we just explained, it comes inside to what we call the MDP. So this is your main distribution panel. In this case here, we installed a 600 amp three-phase service. So this right here is our main breaker. And I know that because for one, it's 600 amps. Two, we label everything, right? In electrical world, you have to label absolutely everything on both ends of the wire, or you're going to be spending an eternity trying to figure things out at the end of the day. So lesson for the day, make sure you're labeling absolutely everything. When you pull a home run or you pull a wire, you need to make sure you know what it is on both ends, out there and in here. So in this case, it's no different. We have the main breaker, 600 amp three-phase. And then from here, this distribution panel literally distributes power to all these other breakers, which in turn feed all these sub panels. So this is considered a sub panel here, right? So sub panel number one can be de-energized by whatever breakers corresponding to it. And then from this sub panel here, it distributes power through the conduits up, over, and out to whatever device that it's intended for. So there's sub panel number one. We have another one over here. Same thing. This one looks like it's about the same size. No main breaker in here because your main breaker's over there. But we fed this guy overhead with this big 2-inch conduit. It goes up and over, fed from that MDP. And then again, after these main lines come here, it energizes the busing behind these breakers. These breakers individually energize whatever device it is that we have going out on the other side. So sub panel number two, and I believe we have another one over here too. Let's go this way. So we have a third sub panel here. This sub panel is going to be kind of for the wash bay area and this side of the building over here, which we could kind of tour the wash bay and stuff. Again, this is a sunbelt rental, so they're always cleaning equipment, maintaining equipment, you know, which is why they have such a big shop here. So it's a busy place, you know. They have it's basically a mechanic shop back here. They have all the tools and all the things that you would need to pretty much fix any of this big heavy machinery or equipment. Another sub panel here, and then we even have a fourth one that's outside that's energizing all the site lighting, our exterior receptacles, a few other minor things. So I think we have a total of 4 sub panels in this place to feed everything. But as you can see, all these lights up here, I think we have 2 separate zones where we switched them individually for lighting code stuff, but these are high efficiency LED high bays is what we call them. They, as you can see, they put out a ton of light. Brian, where's your switches at? They're over here. Will you hit one of those switches real quick? We could just show you what it looks like with the lights off. Both, yep, and then back on. So they give you a ton of light in here, and these things don't draw very much power. So nice light for this setup here. All the garage doors have electric motors up there that we're testing today. Everything is push button down there, low voltage push button station that opens the garage doors. All your heat source up here is a tube heater that's fed with gas, but it still has an electric motor, as you can see up there. And it has an ignition system that is low voltage. So we actually do have power feeding all these tube heaters up here. But man, as you can see, a lot goes into these projects. If you could just kind of take a look over here, Cisco, and you know, all the conduit that goes in here, there's just thousands and thousands of feet of wire. Each one of those conduits probably has 9 wires in it, and times hundreds of feet, you know, times dozens of conduits. So you literally put in thousands and thousands of feet into a commercial project like this, and you don't use aluminum, right? We use all copper, so it's extremely expensive to build these things out. And yeah, I mean, electrical's getting more and more expensive as time goes on. So do like a 360 kind of thing. Nice. That's good. Yeah. That works. What is this called? This is the sales floor. Okay, Sunbelt Rentals sales floor. Kind of take a walk with me. I could show you around, but as you can see, we're in the final day, turning lights on, and it looks like everything turned on. But you can see all these 2x2 LED flat panels, which are super slick. I think they're the best looking lights out right now, and they're becoming more and more common with these showrooms. You know, they give out a great light. I think their color change. That you could select different colors on them from warm to cool. Most of the time in a commercial project, you're going to use a cooler colored temperature, right? So yeah, check it out. Just your basic commercial setup. Kind of walk this way. In every commercial job that you're going to run into and do, you're always going to have what they call emergency lighting and exit signs, right? And they do this because if this building loses power and you have customers in here and they're not familiar with the building, then they need to have a means of egress. And so the way that these things are engineered and designed is so they have little batteries in them. So if this building loses power, that thing has a battery that's 24/7 is being charged, and it'll kick on. And these things could last up to, man, sometimes a couple days on these emergency, what we call frog eyes is what we call them, right? So as you can see, you have one here, and they're strategically placed right around the door, so they'll illuminate this area. So you have a customer in here, and let's say they're a 75-year-old, somebody in a wheelchair or something like that, and they're in the restroom at the time that you lose power. They need to have some kind of illumination to get themselves out of the building. And so a couple requirements are, in your restrooms, for sure, you're always going to have emergency lighting, right? For that reason right there. Then you're going to have a path of egress. I assume this showroom, you could kind of show the showroom a little, Cisco. Eventually it'll have desks and furniture and a bunch of stuff going on in here. You know, they might have a lot of equipment in here that they're trying to rent out and things like that. So it's not going to be just this wide open place and as simple as it sounds, like, oh, just go look for the door, right? Most people can do that, but you never know. In some cases, you have an elderly person who's just not familiar, and it's a high stress moment where all the lights turn off and this and that. You have to have this means of egress. So if you look up here, you'll have this one that I pointed out here, right? And here you have an exit. So this would be considered an exit sign. We have another door over here. This can be considered an exit. So you have an exit sign, another emergency light that'll illuminate this walkway right here to have people come this way, right? Herd them this way. Another exit sign. A couple other things we did in here is these floor boxes right here. Prior to all this structure being here, we do our underground conduits, and that's part of what electricians do in commercial and residential. But in commercial applications especially, the plumbers will come in before this building's constructed. It's when it's just a dirt lot. We know where the boundaries of the building is. And so the plumbers will come in and they'll do all their underground stuff for the bathrooms, the sinks, the mop sinks, all that type of stuff. But then after them is when the electricians come in, and we come in and we'll do things that are required by us. In this case, they're going to have big old sales desks right here, right? The guys will be back here, customers walk in, And so we put floor outlets, and we also put data under here. And these outlets, they have conduits that go all the way back to the sub panel that's feeding this area. So we gave them these nice floor boxes. These things are pretty fancy, you know. You could get these things for under $100, or you could pay $500 for these things. And these ones are right in the middle. They're not cheap for sure. So something to be mindful of. But again, you have another emergency light right here, but in this case, you have no exit door. But the purpose of it is just to give you some kind of illumination so you could see what you're doing. And this one really specifically looks like it might be for the salespeople. So it's a little over-engineered. It seems kind of ridiculous to have all this stuff, but you just never know. Stuff happens, and the reason they've implemented these rules and these laws in the National Electrical Code is because something has happened at one point or another, which prompt them to create a code that is for safety, right? So that's kind of how that works. But as you can see, offices, you know, we have some restrooms over here. Let's check out the restroom. Let me make sure I'm not lying about the emergency light, which we have a motion sensor in here that kicked on our light and kicked on our fan. And guess what, guys? We have a change order here. They don't have a frog eye in here, and they didn't have a frog eye on the blueprint. So we install stuff according to the blueprints. But I guarantee you, when the inspector comes through here for final, and he doesn't see emergency light in here, he's going to make them put it in. So change order for us. Let's go see if this is the men's restroom. Let's see if the women's. Another exit door, exit sign. Right behind you up on the wall, there's another frog eye that'll illuminate this hallway. So that's good because it gets them to this point. But again, there's no, let's see here. There's no exit sign in here, or I'm sorry, no emergency light in here. So change order number 2 for the day. You can stop. So,
as you say, I got to put some crimps on here for the coil.
Yep.
Let me grab that.
Here, check it out real quick. Let's do this real quick. Just go stand like to the side right here or whatever. In your words, explain to me what we did here, like starting from inside, exactly what you kind of did here with this panel and what this panel is specifically for, I guess, in your own way.
Like,
so we brought these feeders in, right? Underground. So step 1, we ran the underground here, brought these feeders in. From these feeders, these breakers are for parking lot pole lights, these outside charging stations, and then I want to do a little example of what the contactor does real quick. So Brian Burns, give us a rundown in your own words what we did here and what's this panel made for.
Well, it's pretty much specifically for outdoors here. We brought our underground in with our main feeders, and then we got all these guys we have a bunch of charging stations down this row, and for our pole lights also. But most all the outside stuff comes right out of this panel, so
okay,
that's its purpose.
And so he's talking about all these little poles that we put right here, and really they're just going to plug in this is a sunbelt rental, so they're plugging in their equipment, that like scissor lifts and anything that has a battery that might need to be charged. But you could also see down the property line all those pole lights up there. They go around the entire property, all over the place. And so with that, what does this box do here, and how are we controlling those lights?
We have a photo control on the back side of this box here. The photo control, once it gets dark, it'll send power over to the contactor. We'll pull the contactor in, send power to the lights.
Yep.
And then they're on until the sun comes up. Photo control shuts down, drops the contactor out, shuts the lights off.
Yeah. And so there's numerous ways to do this, but this is probably one of the most simplest ways to control your lights is with this photo cell, which senses light, right? So as soon as it gets dark, that thing, what he's saying is we have power coming into that photo cell, and once it gets dark, it closes, and sends power back through this wire, which Brian's working on right now. This will eventually connect to this contactor right here. And when this thing gets energized, this coil closes, bam, which then sends power through it out to the lights. So most simple setup. There's different ways to do it. You could do it with time clocks, you could do it with motion sensors, you could do a combination of all these things. It just really depends on what the customer wants. But in this case, they didn't exactly specify, so we just built them the most simple, cheap way that we know to control lights. This is a, what is this, a definite purpose contactor. Yeah, and sometimes these aren't, I know this isn't a lighting contactor. You know, a lighting contactor could be $700 compared to a general purpose contactor, which is $30, right? They do the same thing. I think the lighting contactor is definitely more durable and it's going to last a lot longer, but they didn't specify, and so this is what we installed, and I think it'll work just fine. So, nice. Go for it. Go for it, Brian. It's going to be great.